She was just riding her scooter to see her mom. A normal day in the park, Mother's Day, sunshine, people all around, her father right there beside her. And then a woman in a hood stands up from a bench, a few steps forward, one quick movement, and 8-year-old Emily collapses to the ground. At first, her dad thinks she just fell until people nearby start screaming. And that's when it becomes clear this stranger has just attacked a child right in the middle of the day. Why, Emily, how did an ordinary walk turn into a nightmare that shocked all of the United Kingdom? And how did it turn out that the woman who did this had been showing warning signs for a long time, signs that no one stopped? 8-year-old Emily Grace Jones was born on January 18th, 2013, in Bolton to her parents, Sarah Jones and Mark Jones. Mark worked as a credit manager, and Sarah was a solicitor. Emily was their only child. She was described as a girl full of joy and laughter, with a heart as big as her smile. She loved nature and sports, throwing herself into everything she did. She was fearless. She loved hiking, climbing, swimming, and horseback riding. Mark said his daughter was a bit of a daredevil, but also incredibly friendly and open with everyone she met. Her teacher remembered Emily as a creative child who loved drawing and writing stories. She was popular with her classmates and got along with everyone. Smart and hardworking, she would sometimes joke with her teachers that she had already finished her work before the rest of the class had even written the date. Even though Mark and Sarah were no longer together, they remained on good terms and were fully committed to co-parenting Emily. Mark usually spent Sundays with her, and that weekend they had made plans to meet at Queen's Park. All right, real quick, just a minute. I'm really curious where you're watching from, so drop your city in the comments and let me know what time it is for you right now. Thanks for taking a second to do that. Now let's keep going. That day was Mother's Day, and earlier that morning, Emily had given her mom a card she made herself. Around 2:15 in the afternoon, Emily and Mark Jones were at Queen's Park. She was riding her scooter, zipping past him as he cheered her on to go faster. At one point, Emily spotted Sarah Jones out jogging and said, "Daddy, Daddy, I want to go to Mom." He told her she could, and she rode off toward her. Emily called out to her mom, but Sarah didn't hear her. She had headphones in and was too far away. As Emily continued riding, Mark noticed a woman stand up from a nearby bench and start walking toward his daughter. In the next moment, Emily was on the ground. He didn't understand what had happened. At first, he thought she had just fallen. He could hear her crying, and it looked like the woman was helping her up. Then people nearby started screaming, shocked, terrified voices shouting that his daughter had been stabbed. The woman, her hood pulled up, quickly walked away, holding a knife. Mark ran straight to Emily. She had a catastrophic injury to her neck and was struggling to breathe. He held her and said, "Just stay with me, Emily. Stay with me. Don't leave me." Sarah was still in the park, unaware of what had happened. Mark called her, and at the same time, a nurse rushed over and immediately began trying to help Emily, but her condition was deteriorating fast. One of the people in the park, Tony Canty, was there with his wife and young daughter, and when he saw the woman leaving the scene, he ran after her. He didn't know exactly what had happened or whether she was armed, but he kept going. Meanwhile, Tony's wife handed Mark a piece of gauze from their baby's things, trying to help stop the heavy bleeding. Emergency services arrived within minutes, and paramedics quickly began fighting to save Emily's life. When the first paramedic reached her, he saw Emily lying on the ground, her father holding her from behind. She was bleeding heavily and unconscious. At one point, her heart had stopped. They immediately began CPR and administered adrenaline before loading her into an air ambulance. As Tony chased the woman, his wife shouted that she had a knife, but he didn't stop. He kept going, putting the safety of others before his own. He managed to tackle her to the ground and held her there so she couldn't escape. At the same time, he called 999, telling the operator there had been an incident at Queen's Park in Bolton and that a child was bleeding badly. He also said, "I don't understand what she's saying. She's really agitated." His wife later said she heard the woman shouting that she didn't need her injections anymore, that Tony had killed her family, and that he was trying to kill her. Tony told her, "You're not well. The police are going to help you." The woman responded, "I don't need you telling me to calm down." He kept holding her down until police arrived and took control of the situation.
Yeah. The officer's getting your hands.
Turn over.
So take the bag down.
Wait. Let me take your bag off. Yes. Stay still. Okay.
Hands behind your back.
Thank you. I think she's killed someone.
I'll open the police on.
Is it? Have you seen a child anywhere?
Yeah, she's fine.
Is she on her own?
No, the one's with her. The ambulance is just on.
Right. A child down there.
Get down there quick.
The ID from dealer.
Yes, it's in my bag.
A short time later, she was taken into custody.
18016. Go ahead.
This female is now in cuffs. She has said there's an ID in her backpack, which is fine.
What's in your backpack?
ID and everything.
ID?
Yes, and the knife.
And a knife.
15. That's a kilo.
Yeah, turn it off.
15.
Right, the time now is 14:45. At this moment in time, you're under arrest on suspicion of attempted murder. You do not have to say anything, but it may be defensive. You do not mention something when questioned that you later rely on in court, and if you do so, may be given evidence. Okay? Your arrest is necessary to protect vulnerable people and to ensure a prompt and effective investigation to this offence.
Yeah.
Okay? What's your name?
Eltiona's Corner. Eltiona's Corner.
Okay. Where do you live?
19 Turnstone Road.
19 Turnstone.
Yes.
Right, just wait there. Just confirm to me what's inside your bag.
You can control. It's just no bombs, no nothing.
No
It's just
bombs.
my ID card.
ID card.
In my mom's ID card.
Yeah.
There's a knife, some water, some juice.
Okay.
Nothing.
Okay, that's it. So there's
That's
nothing that's going to harm
in the
me, no?
bag. No.
Okay.
The area around the scene was quickly sealed off, and specialist officers began reconstructing exactly what had happened. Emily was rushed to Salford Royal Hospital. The air ambulance landed at 3:27. She was placed on a ventilator and given a blood transfusion, but she remained in clinical death. At 3:56, doctors pronounced her dead. At that point, this was no longer an incident. It was a murder investigation. The next day, Sarah Jones was asked to formally identify her daughter's body. The postmortem confirmed that Emily had died from a stab wound to the neck. In a statement, the family said, "We are devastated. We will never see our little girl grow up. It's unbearable to live in a world without Emily and not understand why this happened. We want to thank everyone who tried to help and the emergency services for everything they did to save her." The community was in shock. Teachers were heartbroken. The school's head teacher said, "Emily was deeply loved. She will be missed by everyone. Her loss has left a void, and the school will never be the same again." Police began building a profile of the suspect. She was identified as 30-year-old Ilona Skarner, who was detained under mental health legislation. A doctor present during the arrest, Dr. Sanini Farrell, described her as calm but distant. When asked how she was feeling, she replied, "Not very well." She claimed she didn't remember anything, but doctors believed it was more likely a refusal to engage. During the arrest, officers found a wire wrapped around her toes. She said it helped her control her emotions and even tried to tighten it further. Doctors later described this as a clear sign of psychosis. Ilona had been born in Albania in 1990. According to her sister, she had been forced into marriage because of her father's debts and later moved to Kuwait. She eventually fled, returned home, and later relocated to Germany. In 2014, she arrived in the United Kingdom via Italy and France, where she applied for asylum. Her initial request was denied, but after an appeal, she was allowed to stay despite later admitting she had lied in her application. As early as 2015, doctors had diagnosed her with post-traumatic stress disorder. She failed to attend therapy, and the case was eventually closed. Just months later, she grabbed a knife, believing she was about to be attacked. She was admitted to Royal Bolton Hospital with clear signs of psychosis, convinced her neighbors were trying to harm her. She repeatedly tried to leave the hospital, refused medication, and eventually had to be given injections. Over time, her condition improved and she was discharged. After that, psychiatric services continued to monitor her, but she often complained about the side effects of the medication. In November, her treatment was stopped. And not long after, her condition began to deteriorate again. She told doctors at Salford Royal Hospital that she was hearing voices every single day. Her mother didn't believe she needed medication and was against treatment. In 2017, Ilona Skarner refused to let her care coordinator into her home and missed an appointment. Her sister suspected a relapse and tried to arrange help. But even before that, there had been a deeply disturbing incident. Ilona locked her mother in a room and said that once she killed her, everything would be okay. Then she attacked her with an iron and a knife. She was stopped and hospitalized again. It later came out that she had been cutting pipes, unscrewing light bulbs, and behaving more and more erratically. At one point, she escaped from the hospital and around 5 a.m. showed up at an acquaintance's home with a knife, demanding to speak to her 13-year-old daughter. She wasn't let inside, and police brought her back. After her discharge, things seemed to settle for a while, but in 2018, the hallucinations returned, and she asked to go back on injections. Later, she switched to tablets and appeared stable for a time, though she avoided people and often hid behind dark glasses. On March 11th, 2020, she had her last contact with mental health services. Everything seemed so calm that no formal notes were even made. 11 days later, she would kill Emily. On March 22nd, Ilona left her home, bought 3 knives from a discount store, and went to Queen's Park. Later, she would say she did it with the intention of killing someone. One witness later recalled noticing a woman sitting near a bench. She was on the ground, legs crossed, looking agitated, but at the same time, strangely calm. Her gaze was empty, like she was looking through people, not at them. He watched her for a few minutes. She didn't move, didn't speak. Eventually, he decided nothing seemed suspicious and walked away. Just minutes later, Emily passed by that same bench. She was just riding toward her mom, and in that moment, everything changed. The woman suddenly stood up, rushed forward, grabbed Emily, and almost instantly stabbed her in the neck. The attack was so fast, so sudden, no one had time to react. Later, when police searched her apartment, they found nearly a month's supply of antipsychotic medication untouched. She hadn't been taking it. Doctors said that abruptly stopping treatment like that could trigger a rapid mental breakdown in just a matter of days. She was charged with murder. As the case moved into court, more details began to surface. It became clear that in the months leading up to the attack, she had barely been in contact with mental health services. But what shocked many the most was something else. While in the hospital, she told a nurse, "It was planned. I waited in the park and chose my victim." And then added, "I did what I did, and I tried to run." Those words sounded like a direct admission. The court also heard about other incidents, strange behavior, disturbing statements, moments where she seemed disconnected from reality. But the defense argued something very different. Consultant psychiatrist Dr. John Crosby stated that Ilona Skarner was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. According to him, at the time of the attack, she was in the middle of a psychotic episode and simply did not understand reality. He also emphasized that there was no specific reason why Emily was targeted. "This was a completely random, rare, and horrifying attack," he said. "I cannot find any other explanation." Mark Jones spoke in court. "I don't know why this happened," he said. "Emily was just writing to her mom." He added, "She was only just beginning her life, and in one moment, everything was taken from us." In the end, it was the medical evidence that proved decisive. Prosecutors concluded there was no longer a realistic chance of securing a murder conviction, and the murder charge was dropped. The court found Ilona Skarner guilty of manslaughter on the grounds of diminished responsibility. Prosecutor Michael Brady said this was not an easy decision, but after reviewing all the evidence, it became clear there was no real prospect of proving murder. And at that moment, the entire direction of the case changed.
Breaking news: and a woman who killed 7-year-old Emily Jones in a park in Bolton in March has been sentenced to life in prison. Gerard Tubbs outside the court in Manchester, and she's going to be held in a secure hospital, Gerard.
And the judge sentenced her, as you say, to be detained under Section 45A of the Mental Health Act. She has been imprisoned for life with a minimum of 8 years, but she will initially be treated at Rampton High Security Hospital. If she's deemed well enough to leave there, she will go on to serve the rest of her sentence in hospital. The judge said she had to be punished because she had made the decision to buy the knife. She had made the decision to kill someone. There was an element of culpability in her action.
The judge made it clear she had to be held accountable because at some point she made a decision to buy a knife, a decision to kill someone. And in that, there was a level of responsibility. In his sentencing remarks, the judge said, "The devastating impact of what you have done will remain with Emily's parents forever, and undoubtedly with everyone who knew her. There is nothing I can say or do that will bring Emily back to her family or truly ease the pain of their unimaginable loss." He went on to say that based on the evidence presented, he was satisfied that Ilona Skarner was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia and that the nature and severity of her condition required her to be detained in a secure hospital. She would only be considered for release after serving a minimum term and only if she was deemed no longer a danger to the public. The judge added, "If you are never considered fit for release, you will remain in hospital or prison for the rest of your life." Later, it was reported that her minimum term was increased from 8 years to 10 years and 8 months. The judge explained that the original sentence had been calculated incorrectly and he took full responsibility for that error. After the increase, Mark Jones said, "I will fight until my last breath to make sure she stays there for the rest of her life. Whether it's 10 years or 20 for me, it's not enough. As far as I'm concerned, she will always be a danger to society. I truly believe she would do this again to any child." At the inquest into Emily's death, Senior Coroner Alan Walsh said,
Now, a coroner has said the father of a 7-year-old girl killed by an asylum seeker is entitled to feel her killer should never have been allowed into the country. Emily Jones was attacked as she scooted through a Bolton park on Mother's Day in 2020. Her killer was Albanian asylum seeker Eltiona Skarner, who had a long history of poor mental health. From the inquest into Emily's death, here's our North of England reporter, Kelly Foran.
Despite Skarner being well known to mental health services, the coroner today said that the local community teams could not have predicted or prevented Emily's death. He added, though, that if nothing changes nationally, there is a risk to future lives.
The whole profession of psychiatry needs to come under the spotlight at some point. I think it's a real worry. It's just shocking. So we're just going to try and do our best and, in Emily's death doesn't go in vain. So, we'll just keep plugging away, right?
Just try to promote mental health awareness and the dangers of relapse and not monitoring mental health.
I've met with other families in the Greater Manchester area that have been affected by, by homicides and lack of funding in mental health. Everybody knows this,
In the light of Emily's killing and the issues around Skarner's care in the community, Bolton coroner Timothy Brennan said he'd be writing a Regulation 28 Prevention of Future Death report to the Secretary of State. He said, "It will make clear my profound concerns about morale, workload, training, staff shortages and inability to deliver continuity of care." He said the case showed a sector of healthcare provision that is challenging and riven with operational stress and tension. "I sense a healthcare sector in crisis." But he didn't believe Skarner's behaviour could have been predicted by her mental health team. Emily's father, however, said those tasked with monitoring Skarner failed to realise just how dangerous she was.
It's just shocking. And it's been a real, most distressing part of everything is listening to these so-called experts that just completely different opinions on, and no one really understood, as far as I'm concerned, the threat that the perpetrator posed.
Speaking about Alona Skarner, coroner Timothy Brennan said she had deliberately concealed the deterioration of her mental health. Because of that, mental health services never had the full picture. They didn't know she had stopped taking her prescribed medication, and they didn't realize she was experiencing a relapse. According to him, on the surface, everything could have appeared stable, and that's exactly what made timely intervention so difficult. He also added that only in hindsight could those warning signs be clearly seen, and only then could anyone begin to understand where it might lead. At the time, those signs didn't seem obvious enough to predict what would come next. And that's what makes this case even more tragic, the realization that the answers only become clear when it's already too late.
We heard today from Alona Skarner's sister, who said that she was very unwell in the days and weeks leading up to the attack on 7-year-old Emily. She'd been complaining of hearing voices in her head. Now, her sister told the inquest that there had been previous incidents of violence where she'd tried to attack her and her mother, and there'd also been times where she'd been found with a knife outside screaming. She'd also displayed other concerning behaviour, including cutting pipes to a boiler. And her sister Clistora said it was like living, like a horror movie, living with her. Now, she disagreed with evidence given by Skarner's consultant psychiatrist earlier today, who told the inquest that she was stable and hadn't displayed any relapse symptoms of florid psychotic behaviour in the weeks and months before the attack.
Emily's father, Mark Jones, said that even though the investigation had come to an end, it brought him no sense of relief and no sense of justice. He admitted he still couldn't accept the conclusions reached by the authorities, and he didn't understand how something like this could have happened. I can't believe they came to that conclusion. They say they didn't realize the level of risk she posed, but that was their job to know, he said. There was no shouting in his voice, no anger, just a deep, heavy exhaustion, the kind that comes from living through something unimaginable. He added that maybe the system was overwhelmed, maybe the people involved were stretched too thin, but that could never be an excuse when it comes to dangerous individuals. I understand the system is under pressure, that there aren't enough resources, but that doesn't mean you can miss signs like this. These are dangerous people, and when they lose control, the consequences can be fatal. Mark made it clear that for him, this story isn't over, that he still doesn't have answers, that he doesn't feel justice has been done. I don't feel closure. I don't feel like this is the end. This is my daughter, and I have to do everything I can to make sure this never happens again. After the investigation, more details came to light, details that only strengthened the feeling that this tragedy might have been prevented. Mark's lawyer revealed that Alona Skarner had, on 2 separate occasions, directly admitted to doctors that she had lied in her asylum application. She knowingly gave false information to remain in the country. On top of that, in 2015 and again in 2017, she told doctors and even police that she wanted to return home. These weren't vague hints. These were clear, direct statements. Statements that could have triggered further action or a review of her case. But as it later became clear, those warnings led to no significant decisions. When these facts became public, a spokesperson for the Home Office gave a brief response saying they were carefully reviewing the findings of the investigation and the coroner's recommendations, but they offered no explanation as to why those earlier warning signs had been overlooked. For Mark, that wasn't enough, because for him, this isn't just a case, it's not just statistics, it's his daughter's life. He also said openly that he has not been able to forgive the person who took Emily's life. I know people say forgiveness helps you move on, but in this case, I can't. I just can't bring myself to do it. And when he spoke about the moment of the attack, his words became even more raw. How dare she touch my daughter? How dare she lay a hand on her? No, I can't forgive her. It was clear this pain isn't going anywhere. Later, Alona Skarner filed an appeal against her sentence. That meant the case returned to court, and the family had to relive every detail all over again. But the appeal was dismissed. Lady Justice McCoo stated that there was sufficient evidence to show that Alona was aware of her actions and that she had attempted to flee both the scene and later on. That became a critical point because the court essentially recognized that her actions were not driven by illness alone, but also involved a level of awareness. After the ruling, Mark said he didn't feel any joy. I'm not happy, I just feel relief. She's a dangerous person and now everyone can see that. Alona Skarner remains at Rampton Hospital, where she continues to receive treatment. After the tragedy, the services responsible for her care carried out an internal review and stated that there had been no clear warning signs that could have predicted the attack. But NHS England disagreed. Their report stated that as early as 2017, it was already clear she posed a risk to others and that the real issue had been a failure to properly assess that risk and an underestimation of her condition. That conclusion only deepened the divide between different agencies and raised serious questions about a system that is supposed to prevent tragedies like this. Mark responded strongly to those statements, calling them an attempt to avoid responsibility. That's complete nonsense. They're just trying to shift the blame. They knew she wasn't taking her medication and still allowed her to remain without proper supervision. That was dangerous. And they knew it. He added that, in his view, she was like a ticking time bomb, and what happened was only a matter of time. Despite the pain, despite the loss, Mark chose not to stop. Instead, he decided to try to make a difference. He joined the organization 100 Families, which supports families who have lost loved ones in similar circumstances and advocates for changes in mental health care. Someone once told me this won't bring Emily back, and that's true, but I don't want another family to go through what we've been through. I don't want my daughter's death to be meaningless. After Emily's death, her school announced plans to create a memorial in her honor, and the community responded immediately. Funds were raised, and her friends helped create a garden, a place of memory and peace where people could come and remember her, a way to hold on to a part of her life and to show just how much she meant to everyone who knew her. Emily's mother, Sarah Jones, also took action. She launched a fundraiser for the Bolton Lads and Girls Club, helping other children access support and opportunities. Nearly £3,000 were raised, a small but meaningful way to honor Emily and turn tragedy into something good. But for the family, none of this changes the reality. Life will never be the same. Emily was a bright, kind, genuine child with her entire life ahead of her, a life that should have been filled with joy, love, and possibility. And on a day that was supposed to be ordinary, even happy, everything was taken away. As Mark and Sarah said, Emily was the rhythm of their hearts, the reason they woke up every morning, the center of their world. And now, without her, they are left trying to live with a silence that nothing can ever fill. And that's where this story comes to an end. But cases like this remind us of something unsettling. Sometimes reality is more terrifying than anything you'll ever see in a movie or a piece of fiction. Behind every story like this, there are real people, real lives, and questions that don't always have answers. If you found this story compelling, consider supporting the channel, leave a like, share your thoughts in the comments, and make sure to subscribe so you don't miss future videos. There are still many more stories ahead, mysterious, unsettling, and at the same time, impossible to ignore.